everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Linux Guy. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about drives in Linux, and this is really directed at Windows users because the concepts are very different from Windows than they are in Linux. For you Mac users, the concepts are nearly identical, so if you're coming to Linux from the Mac, this probably won't be all that strange to you. But if you're coming from Windows, or maybe you're a Mac user that just doesn't use external drives very much, I guess that's a possibility, then this may be a strange concept to you. Let's first talk about Windows a little bit, just so we can set a baseline. Most Windows users know that their main drive that runs Windows is called the C drive. And if you go into this PC on Windows 10 and look at the drives you have, you probably just have one, and it's going to be called C:. Now, if you have more than one, you might have a D: or an E:. Or if you plug in a flash drive, you might then have a D:, an E:, an F:. Now, this was a clever way back in the DOS days for Microsoft users of DOS to identify their drives easily. And it was a concept that was pretty much applied to Microsoft systems only. And it's not really a part of Unix, which is what developed into the Linux project that you see now, as well as BSD, which ended up being macOS. This is why they're so similar. They have a similar ancestry. But the idea of the C drive has been prominent because it's been used in offices and things for a long time now. Well, Linux doesn't have those at all. Linux has no letters for its drives in any way, shape, or form. Now, this concept may be a little bit jarring, and it may make it hard for you to find things in Linux when you initially start. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it, and I'm going to plug in a flash drive here in a sec so we can talk about how to navigate the system. I actually think that the Linux system is better because it's effectively infinite. There are not a number of drives that you can't plug in, which there are in Windows. Order does matter, though, just like it does in Windows, and I'll get into that a little bit as well. Okay, so I went ahead and plugged in a flash drive. It's an 8GB flash drive right here. You can see it in our file system. It's pretty easy to see, but let's go to other locations now. There's only one here, but I bet I can get to that 8GB drive. So I'm going to go to Computer, and on Ubuntu-based distributions, I'm going to go to Media. Other Linux systems use the MNT folder, but on here it's Media. I'm going to go to the Linux Guy, and there it is, 8GB. Now it also even adjusts and puts me here. So this folder, Media, then houses the user, which then houses whatever user mounted the drive. Now, if it was root, it may just be right there in a folder called 8GB, but there it is. So the way Linux handles drives is by putting them inside the root directory. Now, in Linux, we don't go to C:/ like this, but rather we go to this. This by itself just represents the root of our directory. Everything starts here. So if we change directory and we go there, we list what we have, here's everything. Here's our whole system. You see there's the media folder I mentioned before. Here's the home folder. This is where all of our user profile stuff is, except for root, which is here. It has its own. This system has snap, so it has its own thing. We have a bin folder. That's where all of our binaries are. We have a boot folder. This has files that help our computer boot up. We have a temp folder, which is erased when the computer is restarted. I'm not going to go through everything in detail about what they do, but it's very straightforward. It's supposed to be easy to understand. It looks intimidating, but all the names are pretty much what they mean. This is called Etsy, but it literally stands for etc., and it's just extra stuff. There's a lot you can find in there as well. But by using the / and then the media, we can effectively mount as many drives as we want, and we can call them whatever we want. All modern Linux distributions contain some form of Fdisk, so this command should run on all of them. Keep in mind, though, you do need to have root to run this. So the reason I ran this is because this shows me that each device has a name. So our flash drive that we plugged in, this 8GB one, which is reading a 7.5 gig available, is SDB1. So it's the SDB device. It's device SDB, and the partition is partition 1. Now, if we had more than one partition on this particular drive, we would have SDB2, SDB3, etc., etc., etc. If we scroll up, we can see this demonstrated. Right here is our actual operating system. This is what's hosting my Pop! OS instance. You see we have device, SDA, instead of SDB, 1, 2, and 3. There's 3 partitions. They're all on the SDA drive. Fdisk tells us a little bit more information about them. This one has an asterisk under boot. This is our boot partition. This is a really big partition. Well, this is where everything is stored. This is where the operating system and all our files are. Some Linux systems will add another one. We'll add another partition here called /home, and it'll divide this up, and then you'll store all your files in that /home. This makes distro hopping easier if you're a distro hopping kind of person. And then this last one here is the swap space. You see we have 4 gigabytes available. It's best practice to put this swap at the end, and then there it is. Now, why is all this important to know? Let's say you wanted to have a drive mount when the computer turns on. This could be really convenient, especially if you have a bunch of them. Maybe you have a solid-state hard drive running your operating system, but it's small because they're kind of expensive. So you have a mechanical drive holding a whole bunch of files, but you don't want it to spin up all the time. So you use primarily that solid-state drive, but you store large files, maybe games, on a mechanical hard drive. This is common practice. A lot of people do this. And for good reason. It saves a lot of money. What you'd want to be editing is this file in Etsy called Fstab. Now, pretty much you would leave most of this alone, but you can add more items to it following the syntax that you see. You see right here we have a boot, and this is an ext4 partition. These are parameters for mounting it. And we have an ext4 partition. This is the root. This is all of our files. I can make another video explaining how to program Fstab. The only reason I brought it up here is to demonstrate how these are all one type of system, and they're the SDA drive. We can't change our configuration on boot if we want things to continue to work well. Say you plugged in a flash drive. If it took over SDA, it would mess up your Fstab and your system wouldn't load. This is a weird thing in Linux, but it's something to take note of. Let me know in the comments if you guys would like me to explore Fstab more. I just wanted to use it to demonstrate the different kinds of names for devices in Linux so that you realize that if your computer's not turning on, maybe it's because of this. If you plug in a flash drive before you boot your Linux system and you aren't trying to boot from said flash drive, it could screw up your root partition and your computer will mount the wrong system. This probably won't happen if you only have your one root partition, but if you have more than one hard drive, it can bork things up. I've done this a few times. As always, thank you for watching The Linux Guy. Make sure to follow us on Library, on Odysee, or on BitChute. Send us some cryptocurrency if you feel so inclined as a tip. We've got a few options below. I'm starting to set up a subscribe star. If you guys would like me to pursue this, please let me know, and let me know what kinds of content you'd like to see over there. I'm thinking of maybe doing some conversational things. Maybe we can get some of you on and have some guests to talk free open source stuff, and trying to grow the channel a little bit. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.